there were a couple things that I wanted to, that I just wanted to play with. One was make sure all the characters link together, because we've been introduced to a lot of F3AR characters. There was a conspiracy sort of hinted at with a senator and this and that, and I said, there's nothing scary about a conspiracy, so we got rid of that, just kept it Armacam and Fear and the experiments they did, because that's nasty enough, And what I really wanted to do, and luckily everybody played with it, was there are your scary moments, and then there are the moments where you're fighting the soldiers, because I always thought that sort of interfered with the horror. If you're always fighting in a combat situation, that's not very scary. So we try to separate out where you spent a lot of time in the horror, and what's really great in this game is everybody is affected by it, because as we know now, Alma is pregnant. So now Fear and Armacam are there they're in as much danger as the world is. So now the horror has spread. So there's a couple little things like that. Mostly what it was really connecting everything. Connecting Fettel and Point Man. And then, Beckett is in this new game too. Believe it or not, he survived that ending. Not in the best shape, but he's still around. So it was really fun to try to pull it all together, and I hope people think this, but now I think it feels like a trilogy. And it ends but it's a beginning. And I think it could be a new beginning for the game too. It was really experimental, because with comic books, it's basically just me having a dialogue with the artist. I just write what I want, I describe it to them, and nobody sees that script. Nobody will ever see it except the artist and maybe my editor. When you do a screenplay, you got to keep everything very minimal, because you got a lot of people, hands-on, and with the video game we started, and literally, we had an experiment, because at first they would show me the story and they would literally hand me like a graph, and I was like, because they're the tech people, so we had to come up with a way to work. And what I wound up doing is I wound up using Final Draft, which is what I write screenplays. I just said, how about I just write the story. I write all the elements, I write the scenes and the dialogue and all this stuff, and then you guys plug it in to the tech and then send it back to me and tell me what you need changed and additional dialogue. And after a little bit of back and forth, we really found a great way to work together. Most of the problems were trying to address the things that annoyed me in games, which is, I always hate that point in a game where somebody goes like, this door's locked, we should find a key. People don't talk like that, so you just say, this door's locked, and then you need to find a key, and try to keep it natural so it doesn't sound, so you're immersed in the game, and at no point do you feel like you're given instructions to run errands or find objects. So just to keep the whole thing flowing, I thought that was really the challenge, actually. Keep the story. It's sort of like, if you notice the story too much, you're taken out of the game. So it's really just making it part of the experience, so that people you never pull them out. That's the most important thing. It was really strange, because, I co-wrote this with John Carpenter, and he and I had been working on a movie together for a company I won't name, and we both got fed up on the same day, and we both quit. But we really got along. We want to do something. John's incredible. He plays more video games than anybody I know. And I got a call offering me F3AR 3, and I had already played 1 and 2, and I knew how 2 ended, so I wanted to write it really bad. And I invited John on to play, because that's what it was. It was like, and he said yes, and the company said yes, and that's how it started. And it's just, it's been great too, because being offered a game that I had already played and I knew, and especially, did you play F3AR 2?
Oh, yeah.
So that ending, come on, I wanted to do the next chapter so bad. Generally what we do is we'd have a story meeting, figure out what we want to do. I'd go off and do the script pages, get it together, bounce it off the company, and then we'd have like lunch like once a week for a few hours, and just go through the script, line by line. And he's really smart and brutally honest. He'll literally go like, that's good, that's scary, oh, that sucks. and literally like, oh, okay, and I'd have to make a change right there. So it was very, it was very immediate and very fun, and but you can't. He knows horror better than anybody. Movies can be very frustrating sometimes because everything's done by committee, and so I just talked to John, and he was like, "Life's too short. Let's, we'll find something else." And I was just so happy to be friends with. I grew up idolizing John Carpenter, so to get a chance to work with him, it was really wonderful. So I was so happy this came along for us to work on. A successful game is where you get the story, but you're not sitting back and watching it. You're actually participating. And I think if we hit that, it'd be really great. Like games like BioShock do that beautifully, and I think with the Fear game, especially with this one, we're really going to get that because we really tried hard not to put the brakes too much and hit too many cinemas where you're told what the story is. We try to have it happen to you. So I think that's a big part of it. One of the things that I think especially works for Fear are actually the moments where there's not a lot of action, where you're in a hallway and it's dark and the lights are flickering and you're hearing noise down the hall and there's an eviscerated body here and you don't know and there's doors open on either side, and I think some of those are the best moments for creating tension, and then you can really just make people jump out of their seat. And it's just a fun release, and then you get to shoot the monsters, and so there's all different kinds of levels of scares. But some of my favorite moments are the quiet moments where you don't know what's going to happen. I always love those moments in games, and it's happened in a few where you'll turn a corner, and then at the very end of the hall you see a shape and it moves, and then you're so tense, because something's there, or when a body's dragged up through a vent, or like I said, I love those moments. I think those are really great. They did such a great job on this that the co-op worked. Well, one, it works beautifully, but the single player still works because with the co-op, obviously you're playing Fettel and Point Man, and you team up, and each has different powers. When you play the campaign game, Fettel is still there as a character at the right moments, and so he's still part of the story. So it's slightly different, but it's still there. So I actually like it because you really can get several different experiences. And another thing with games is replayability, and I think Fear 3 is going to have tremendous replayability because of it. And the co-op, they came up with ways where you can literally be on different floors of a building and working on it and still be able to track each other and stuff. And in this case, because one is a supernatural being and one is just a super soldier, there's some really wonderful things you can do. I don't know if you've seen the demo, but Fettel can possess anybody in the game. So if he sees a soldier with a sniper rifle, he possesses that body. And so the tactical things that you can do with the characters are really great. So between the co-op and the campaign, I think both are going to be just great. When I play co-op, I'm usually playing with somebody in another state with a headset, and I think you actually have the opportunity to freak each other out more. Because you'll both be dealing with it. Now you'll have that actual horror movie scene where you're like, where are you? I can't find you. You hear your friend being mutilated, and you've got to try to get to him. So I think there's potentials for other kinds of scares too. I think the video game industry is doing better than the film industry right now. It's very, very hard to get movies off the ground right now, while they can go do video games, and it's a whole new world. That's I keep sort of trying to talk about it. Right now, we're in silent movies as far as video games are concerned. So it's really exciting for everybody involved, to get into. Yeah, everybody wants in on it.
Have you tried some of the 3D stuff? Do you think that could probably change it for the better, or is that just?
I'll see. 3D is one of these things. It keeps popping up. It's been popping up since the 50s, and for me, as long as if I don't get a headache, it'll be fine. But that essentially always winds up being the problem. Is it always winds up being disorienting, and I think I'm excited if it will work, but I don't think it's necessary.
Do you think that could work in the horror genre a lot better?
Yeah, as long as you don't do the cheesy, and that's, I don't know if you remember like the Friday the 13th 3D, where every time they'd come in it would be like, they would just that was the only thing they would do at 3D. And I think if you did it, say, in Fear, if you could see bullets going past you and things like that, you could, I could see it if it's used sparingly and not too much as a gimmick. It can just be another tool, like sound or anything else. I just think right now we're still at the gimmick stage with it, and we just need to figure out, it's one of those things. Like I said, we're in our infancy with this. So, I think once they figure out a way to do it so that it doesn't burn people's retinas out, and it makes sense, and it's not just a gimmick. Because a lot of the movies that come out in 3D is just like, you go see the movies and it's completely unnecessary. So, but I'm anxious to check it out here. To be honest, I haven't seen it here.